This is your Wednesday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. So much good stuff today. Lindsay Whalen will be on the show in just a little bit to talk about the Gopher women's basketball program, the season for them that just finished up, trying to navigate coaching through a COVID season. And, Lindsay's a sports fan, too. She's a Minnesota sports fan, so we talk some Minnesota sports with Lindsay Whalen as well. We'll also talk a little bit of Vikings here in a little bit, and we'll finish up with some Mark Coyle thoughts. But first, what did I miss? Gopher men's hockey team, Big Ten champions, beat Wisconsin in the championship game on Tuesday night, 6-4. Got a little dicey, right? It was 5-1 third period, but it ended up being a 6-4 final. Doesn't matter. As they say, the cliche this time of the year, survive in advance. They get there. They get to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2017. They win the Big Ten championship, tournament championship. So now, here's the big deal, right? So, winning the Big Ten tournament championship is nice. Blake McLaughlin, 2 goals, 2 assists. Jack LaFontaine, one of the best goalies in college hockey all year, award-winning goalie at that, makes 46 saves in that game. So I don't want to speed too fast past the game itself, but the bigger picture of the win is it probably means they don't have to go to Fargo. Gophers don't have to go to Fargo for the regional. They're probably making the pretty strong case to be a number 1 seed when those seedings come out on Sunday. And what does that mean? Well, it probably means they avoid some pretty tough teams in the Fargo regional. There's going to be probably a lot of good NCHC teams in that regional. You might see North Dakota there, some other good teams. Not that there's not going to be good teams wherever the Gophers go if they wind up getting the number 1 seed and going somewhere else. But avoiding that path makes it far more likely that they could advance a couple more times and get back to a Frozen Four, which would really be a program marker, right? When Bob Motzko took over a few years back, things were, it wasn't like the cupboard was completely bare. This was a program with a lot of tradition, but there was some early struggles, right? He had to kind of figure out how he wanted this team to play, to rebuild this thing how he wanted to after doing exactly that in St. Cloud. Well, guess what? They're here. They're back. Gophers are back, and they're likely going to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, which is a big, big deal. We'll have to see what the selection is on Sunday evening. I believe it's a 6 o'clock selection show, but I think they've earned it, and that path means more likely, I guess, not a guarantee, but more likely to get to that elusive Frozen Four. They briefly stole a little bit of spotlight away from the other hockey team in town, the other bigger men's hockey team at least in town, the Wild. 3-0 win over the Coyotes on Tuesday. They should play Arizona every night. Seems like they do pretty well against them. But what else can we say about this team at this point? Kaapo Kähkönen, another shutout, another just kind of solid all-around 3-0 win. Those kinds of wins sure to put a smile on head coach Dean Evison's face. Just the kind of, coaches love wins like that where, it's not particularly flashy, but, you grind it out, you get good goaltending, you get solid play. Those are the kinds of wins that they don't dazzle you necessarily, but they show up, you win, you bank the 2 points. And looking big picture at the standings, I'd say there's 10 really good teams in the NHL this season, and the Wild is one of them. The West Division, they're creeping up. They're creeping up on Vegas. I think the next game the Wild play will be the halfway point of this 56-game abbreviated season. They've already got 37 points in 27 games. A lot of those coming, in the last 15 or 20 or so as they've really taken off. If we're talking about revised expectations, this Wild team is setting them. They have the pieces. They have the pieces in place to be dangerous in the playoffs. Everything you'd want in the playoffs right now, they're getting. So it could be a very fun postseason run for them. We just got to keep our eyes on that, and see. Is this a March and April and May to remember for hockey in this state, which has been lacking, at least locally, at least in the Twin Cities, for a very, very long time. I got to talk about the Vikings for just a minute here too, because we haven't really touched much on Vikings free agency. We've been so focused on Richard Pitino the last couple shows, but Vikings free agency, the legal tampering period, which is my favorite term in all of sports, started this week. I believe Wednesday marks the actual first day of the league year. Things might become official here pretty soon, but Vikings, interesting strategy right now. I get where they're coming from. You see releasing Riley Reef. I don't love that. We got to see what else they're going to do on the offensive line. I got to think Kirk Cousins is like, hey guys, got to get me some help here. But bigger picture, two things seem to be happening. One, they seem to be investing in the defense and kind of gearing up for that side of the ball to be, I don't say the star of the show, but any Mike Zimmer team tends to have defense at the forefront. And I think that's shifted in the last couple of seasons as last year they dealt with so many injuries and the Michael Pierce opt-out. It just naturally shifted that way. And the offense played better. The offense was better than the defense last season for the first time on a Mike Zimmer coached team. Free agency has shown us that they're prioritizing a slightly different approach. They're prioritizing defense. They're doing some restructures to create some room. They signed Dalvin Tomlinson earlier this week to a 2-year, $22 million deal. They have both the Dalvins, by the way, in the NFL are on the Vikings now. Ben Gessling tweeting that fact. I think the only two in NFL history to play a snap in the NFL are now both on the Vikings. Obviously, Dalvin Cook being the other one, but Dalvin Tomlinson, a run stopper more or less. Now here's one thing I'm kind of curious about though. It seems like he and Pierce together will be good at stopping the run. I don't know how good they'll be at getting to the quarterback, and so I wonder, not to make too much of an Office reference here, but remember The Office when they did that spoof commercial for The Office, and the slogan for Dunder Mifflin, their paper company, was "Limitless paper in a paperless world." I wonder if the Vikings are setting up to have a defense that can really stop the run when that doesn't matter as much anymore these days. Should that be your priority in today's NFL, or should you be, if you have money to spend and it's not very much, should you be prioritizing people that can get to the quarterback versus people who can stop the run? I don't know. I'm not Mike Zimmer. I'm not the defensive expert. Obviously, did not play the game, but I want to see how these two guys play together in 2021. Maybe there'll be enough of a disruption in both the run game and the pass game that this will work out really well. But right now, I still wonder about their ability to get to the quarterback, even with a fairly significant signing on the defensive line.
I'm Nyla Jean Myers, Senior Assistant Sports Editor at the Star Tribune. Thank you for listening to Strip Sports Daily Delivery. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast and our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Really happy right now to be joined by Lindsay Whalen, head coach of the Gopher women's basketball team. You might remember she also played a little bit of basketball for the Gophers and Lynx. Maybe, most successful player in Minnesota history, maybe is not an overstatement. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here. It was a nice introduction. I don't know. It's not for me to say.
I just said it, so it's not for you.
You said it, not me, Ramball.
You don't have to say it. I'll say it for you. It's been a good run. If it's not you, you're in the conversation at the very least. Let's leave it at that. Just finished up your season like last week. I wanted to touch base with you. Let's start with, I'm sure this was a strange year, a growing year in a lot of ways for this program as you kind of, got through a lot of different things. Can we just start with, what lessons do you take out of a season like this where there's so much adversity kind of thrown your way?
Yeah. I think that you take away that, there was a point around this time last year and even into some of the early summer months where it didn't look like we were going to have a season and it didn't look like we were going to be playing. It was football for the Big Ten. They went back and forth. They weren't going to play. They were going to play, then they weren't going to play, and then they ended up playing. And so I think that once the Big Ten football got going, then I think we all kind of realized that we would play safely. But I think to just go back to like where we were all sitting at home, and a lot of us still are at home, basically thinking that we're probably not going to have a season. And I think to, first of all, get 21 games in and deal with different things, COVID related, non-COVID related, just basketball injuries and different things that pop up in a season. To get to that point, I think it's a big accomplishment by our conference and athletic department and team and players. And so, it was a season that will go down in history as one unlike any other, and our whole world is dealing with it. And it's, we're thankful we were able to get as many games in as we did.
As you coach through it, what were the particular challenges of whether it was, getting players emotionally ready to play in empty gyms, whether it was, having to pause at moments when you didn't have a full roster? What was some of that like, just experiencing what you went through the last, 4 months, even if you were able to get this season in?
Yeah, I think it was, I think at the start, it was, everybody was, obviously excited that we're going to play. We have this opportunity. There's a lot of other leagues and a lot of, different levels of just take basketball, that the Ivy leagues didn't play. There's certain conferences that decided that they weren't going to play this season, certain, different levels of, Division III, they played 8 games, they didn't have a championship season as far as like a playoff and a tournament. So first of all, being excited to get in and play, and then understanding though the amount of commitment it took, it was fairly all encompassing. It was daily testing, 6 of 7 days, testing every day. It was dealing with, false positives and then positive, and then certain, positive tests throughout the season, shutdowns. It was not being able to go to a restaurant, not being able to go anywhere really on campus and see friends outside of our bubble or our tier 1 group that gets tested every day because of, what would happen if you were exposed, and then bringing it to the gym, which we did have a few situations this year where that happened. And some of that stuff you can't really control. It's really not anyone's fault. But I think I think by the end, everybody was really so just emotionally and mentally drained by it that everybody, now that we obviously, today's Selection Monday, and we wish we were a team that was going to be called. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of healing that's going on by everybody within the tier, because it was a really intense 6 months of just, this is really all you can do. These are the only people you can really see. And, we definitely, got close as a team. And I think that there's also a time now where people can take a bit of a break.
I'm sure you're looking forward to that a little bit. But as you kind of zoom out on this program a little bit, and, you've been so into this year, and program building is part of, any individual season too. But as you think about the big picture of where this program is and building a consistent winner, I'm sure where you are right now isn't where you want to be in 2 or 3 years. But what's the roadmap to you? How do you get there? Because this is a program when you were there that was starting to build, a consistent, getting to the tournament almost every year. You made the Final Four run. You had a couple Sweet 16s. Like what's the roadmap to getting back to that point, or establishing what you want to establish?
Mm-hmm. I think this season, our overall record was 8-13. But I'll say this: we won 7 conference games compared to 5 last year. So my first year, we come in, obviously have a talented roster. We win 9 conference games. So if we just look at the conference games, take non-conference out, because that, it's what it is. Your record always looks different with the non-conference added, hopefully. And so you go 9 wins our first year, you go 5 wins last year, you go 7 wins this year, with 2 different COVID shutdowns that I think, it's what it is. We had to play the games. There's probably a couple wins out there that I'm still wish we had, that wish we had those games back, and we probably could have finished 500 again this year. with the group we had. So then, you start thinking, take a Michigan State, just above that 500 line. They're in. They make a nice run. So next year, if we, essentially bring back, the entirety of our roster, and we don't have COVID, and we, don't have some of the injuries we have, hopefully you're looking at being in that conversation again, and then add in hopefully a couple of really good non-conference wins, and now you're looking at a, close to a 20-win season. So yeah, I mean, there's no question we're going into year 4. I feel good about our roster. I feel good about where we're at. I know, as far as, having to just, establish how we're going to do things. This, last year was a big year with that, as far as this is how the thing is going to go. Now this year, I feel like we still took a step forward. It wasn't a huge step, but it was a step in the right direction. And in a COVID year, to be able to say that or in a pandemic year, is something I think our players can be proud of. But now there's no question. The postseason workouts that we'll have in April, the summer access that we'll have, are crucial for our team to be able to take another step. It was said all year, how young we were. But now it's time. Like a lot of our scoring is in that sophomore class. Well, now they're juniors, and now you're an upperclassman. And now, we got to go out there and we got to have a great off season and get ready to get this thing going, because we know we have the potential to do it. Now it's time to go put it on the court.
You were brand new to coaching when you took this job, 3 years ago. What have you learned along the way? What are some of the eye openers, I guess, as you kind of evaluate how you transitioned into this role and in this part of your career?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Your first year, you have the kind of the honeymoon phase, and I'm coming off of a career in the WNBA, 15 years as a player. And then you kind of, you get into it, and, that goes pretty quick, and, I think that my second year, there's a lot of things that I learned that year, and a lot of things that I, would have done differently. But at the same time, like, I know how things are supposed to be and how things are supposed to go, and that's what we're building. And I really felt we took a big step in that this last season, even in the pandemic. I love coaching the game. I love practice. I love coaching the games, the strategy, the adjustments, the late game situations, being around the team, all those things. I think until you're in it, I wouldn't have known that I really enjoyed as much as I do. There's certain elements that are taxing, but it's what it is. It's nonstop. It's you got to really make sure you find time for a little downtime so you can refresh and reset. But that's everybody. That's everything everybody does. Every job, and if it's challenging, that you're getting better and working at it. So yeah, there's a lot of parts of it. There's a lot more positives for sure. That you just keep coming back, because it's so fun to continue to be in the gym and be around the game, and around the game you love, and around your players, and you see them grow and develop. It's definitely a fun journey these first few years.
Recruiting seems like one of those things that's kind of nonstop, especially now, the age of social media, everything like that. You've had some success with in-state recruiting in particular. You've got some nice players that look like they're going to be coming in. You already had some good success with that with the players currently on your roster. As you think about recruiting, particularly in the state of Minnesota, what has that experience been like as you fan out and you visit, different high schools, different programs, and does it feel different to you? I don't know how much you remember of getting recruited when you were, just 20 years ago, but how much do you feel like that process has changed since you went through it on the other side?
Yeah, it's the phone, the cell phone, the social media, all that has changed all of it. And when I was being recruited back in the day, I would if I wasn't home, I wouldn't get the phone call. And it was up to me to call back. And if I didn't want to talk, then I didn't, if it wasn't one of the schools that I was really interested in. Now it's, now we're all just so accessible at all times that that it just makes for, kind of just a constant thing. You got to really, more than anything, and this is everybody, but you just got to be really aware of of what you're posting and what you're, commenting on, things like that. Because you always want to put everything in a good light. I might be watching a Timberwolves game and I would want to tweet something, but I'm like, I can't, good or bad, really, because it's like, you just don't know who's really. So I usually stick to just posting pictures of my dogs. That's pretty safe. But yeah, it's, I enjoy, when, before this, recruiting shutdown with everything, I enjoy going out, the AAU, is totally different than it was back when I played. We played. Did you play AAU?
I did not play AAU. No, I did not play the game.
It it was back in the day. It was kind of like this summer fun thing. I didn't play till I was after my 10th grade year. Like, you should really play. And now it's just like there's certain areas of the country that the AAU programs are, maybe bigger than the high school programs, and it just wasn't the case back in the day. And so you really just it's and it's like everything. It's people, it's relationships, it's getting to know, different, coaches and, skill development, people. It's all relationships and building that. And, it's the lifeblood of everyone's program is recruiting. So it's something that, it's a daily, all the time deal and everything, because you're constantly, selling your program and selling, your philosophies and your ideas.
I'm glad you mentioned you're not just a coach. You are a Minnesota sports fan. I'm glad you referenced the Timberwolves. I'm going to ask you a positive question. As you survey the Minnesota landscape right now, and you watch sports, probably have a little bit more time now than you did in season. But what are some of the things that you like? What are some of the things that you're seeing that you're like, okay, I like where this team is going. I like watching this. I like watching that.
I mean, well, Kaprizov.
Yeah, right.
That's for sure. Wild.
And that was your first love, right? Hockey was one of your first.
Hockey was my first game. Yeah, hockey, played that until I switched over to play just basketball in 6th grade as far as my winter sport. So yeah, obviously he's just been tremendous, and he feels like he's kind of uplifted a whole franchise. And there's a lot of players that are having really good seasons, but they've been fun to watch. Obviously watching Anthony Edwards is a lot of fun to kind of see where he continues to grow. Hopefully D'Angelo Russell and he can get back and be healthy, and we can kind of see how this young nucleus keeps forming. That'll be fun to keep our eyes on. And then it's just like, thank goodness we're having baseball, because it just means we're out of this winter of everything we've gone through. And it's like finally an outside sport, and hopefully the Twins have another really good season. But I think all good stuff. I think, Cheryl obviously did a tremendous job in free agency this year. I'm excited to see, the WNBA, what this season looks like, because I don't know. It's going to be interesting because everybody's gone away from the bubble concept now. And now we're obviously getting lots of vaccinations, and Governor Walz, said we could start having fans at sporting events, I think soon, right? Maybe like today.
Early April is, kind of, that's okay. Twins. I think there's some ramping up. I think for like Wild and Wolves, I think it's like April 5th, and then the Twins home opener is April 8th. So it's a few weeks out. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Hopefully there's fans. Obviously, if there's going to be fans, if we're ramping up for Timberwolves, then that bodes well for this summer with the Lynx. To me, it's going to be interesting with the travel with the WNBA because they fly commercial, right? Primarily, yeah. Still. We always, I never flew a private
or a charter flight in the WNBA. So that's kind of the interesting piece. I'm excited for the schedule. I'm really excited for that team just having, two back-to-back rookies of the year. Now we got some free agent signings. So I like what's the only did I touch on every pro sport?
We didn't.
I like a lot of
you hit a lot of the ones that are in season at least. We didn't talk Vikings, but they're
Vikes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It feels like that's a long time away. I know free agency and combines and drafts NFL is a 24/7, 365 deal, but it's not really. Yeah, the in-season ones are kind of, and then preparing for the links is kind of on the top of my mind. The Loons, we probably aren't we getting going with that too?
Yeah, that's their season was pushed a little bit, but I think that's next month. And they're talking about having some spectators in that too. Reynoso, it's fun. It's a kind of a fun time to be. I guess the bigger picture is I think it's kind of a fun time to be a sports fan. There's a lot of good young players right now to kind of latch on to. Kaprizov being at the top of that list, but I think you hit on a lot of that excitement building right now.
Yeah, seriously, it's a lot. It is pretty cool. I need to watch more Loons games this year. We made that run in the playoffs last year.
They got to the league semifinals, and they were up late with a chance to
against
get
LA,
there.
right?
I think the loss was to Seattle.
Yeah, I knew it was West Coast, and we were up in that game, and then it just kind of
they ran out of gas.
Ran out of gas in sports 2-0.
Yeah, worst lead in basketball for sure.
Well, true. They always say that about hockey. It's like the worst lead to have a 2-goal lead. But yeah, I remember I watched that game last year, and I was I was feeling bummed that we couldn't hold on to that lead. But
last question, you already referenced this too. How are the dogs? You post about them a lot. How are the dogs doing?
Mm-hmm. They're good. They need haircuts badly.
We all do, Lindsay. We all do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're good. They're good. Henry's, let's see, he's 3.5. Charlotte is like 1.5. So they're good. Charlotte she's still kind of more in that puppy phase. So she kind of just loses her mind a lot and just goes crazy, when we get home or if there's, any type of noise. Henry, he's kind of more in the he's getting a little more calm, I guess, stage of things. So, but they're great, obviously great companions, great, fun to have during this whole, COVID time and everything to, kind of for a while there was like, that was our routine was, walking the dogs and feeding the dogs and playing with the dogs. And then, what's for dinner basically at night, it's like, It kind of became the routine for the better part of 3 months last year, and it's kind of continued. So, they're good. Thanks for asking. Of course. And they're a fun bunch to be around for sure. Every day, all day, except in the middle of the night. If they hear something, they start barking.
Well, Lindsay, great stuff. Enjoyed catching up with you. We'll do this again at some point here, but enjoy the off season, get some downtime. Everybody could use some downtime as we come out of this. It's just a grind. I'm sure you were in it, more than a lot of people. Just the focus you need to keep working through this is, I think, an underrated thing. And to get through that and to get your team in a position to win some games and have success going forward should not be ignored. So congrats and best of luck going forward. Okay.
Thanks so much. Same to you. And we've known each other for a long time. So all the best and family. Hope your family's doing well and healthy and hanging in there, and better times ahead for sure. So same to you and yours for sure, Ramball. Appreciate you.
That is the message of the spring this year. Better times ahead, right?
Yeah, for sure. Gotta have that to look forward to.
Awesome, Lindsay. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Let's end with the cooler. Lindsay Whalen's boss, Mark Coyle, spoke on Tuesday after the firing of Richard Pitino and after he was hired officially at New Mexico. Got asked a question about how can they spend all this money on potential buyout and larger salary for a basketball coach in the wake of cutting a bunch of non-revenue programs at the University of Minnesota. Here's what Coyle had to say to that.
they're two different topics. Obviously, we made a very difficult decision with the reduction in sport programming, and those are recurring expenses. Obviously, with the change we're making today, we're very aware of our finances. We've been very public about those finances in our board meetings and with our supporters of all of our programs. So again, we're very mindful of where we're at financially as a department, and we'll continue to make good financial decisions that have the support of President Gable and our board leadership and our board.
Maybe he understands that those programs ultimately drive the revenue for much of the rest of the department, but it also feels like a philosophical shift that bears watching, and how that plays out for other non-revenue sports down the road remains to be seen. That'll do it for today. Expecting to have Ryan Longwell, former Vikings kicker, on Thursday's show, then maybe Ben Gessling, Vikings writer, to talk about free agency on Friday's show, as well as some outdoors coverage. We've only done that one other time on this show, but I loved having it, and I think we should do it again. So we're going to do it again Friday. Thanks again for listening to the Daily Delivery on Wednesday. We will catch you again on Thursday.